Another day, another thing to complain about, it seems. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Coder, and today I'm gonna move this chair. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Coder, and today we have a little bit of a topic to talk about. I wanted to have like a quick discussion about this because it's something that if you've been living under a rock, you haven't been seeing, but if you've been on the internet at all in the last couple of days, you've witnessed the big old rant, the rage coming from players about the current prices of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I know this is a discussion that we have every other week, pretty much. There's always some people that are complaining about card prices, but I feel like this time, for the first time in a long time, is when it's the most justified. So if you guys have been living under a rock, you are not aware that 2024 is the year that the players have dubbed the Year of Fire in Yu-Gi-Oh! The reason why they're dubbing it the Year of Fire is specifically because Konami is coming out with a ton of very powerful fire cards. We're seeing the Snake Eye cards come out, we're seeing the Fire King starter deck come out, and all of these decks are very, very strong. Moving into the next format, they're probably going to be some of the best decks, if not uncontested best decks. And that basically means that because these decks are the best decks, they're going to be the most played and most likely the most expensive. Now, typically when a deck is the most expensive deck in a format, is the most played deck in a format, you can expect the prices of the cards to be pretty high. However, for the first time in a very long time, we're seeing decks with prices that enter the absurd territory. Now, the cards I'm talking about obviously are the Diabellstar Sinful Spoils package. Currently, some of these cards are available in the game. There's going to be more coming down the line, but with the ones that you have to play right now, you need to play 3 copies of Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, 1 or 2 copies of the Diabellstar, as well as the original Sinful Spoils to get you to a level 1 fire monster. Now, if we look at the price of this small engine, this is 6 cards that you need to be playing in pretty much every single one of these fire decks, whether you're playing Rescue Ace, whether you're playing Snake Eye, whether you're playing Fire King, you are playing these 6 cards. Currently, Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils is sitting at right around $130 on TCG Player. Diabellstar, which you need 1 or 2 of, is sitting right around $40. And obviously, the original Sinful Spoils is not that much, but looking at the price of this entire package is like a $500 package just to play 6 cards in your deck. So before you even look at the archetype that you want to play, whether you're playing Rescue Ace or they're playing Fire King, and these are some of the best decks in the game right now, you are forced to dish out $500 before even picking what deck you want to play. If you know you're going to be playing a fire deck, you have basically a $500 entry fee before you even get to choose what deck you want to be playing. Now, this has been a problem for a little bit now, and some people have brought it up, but not a lot of people were super outraged over this. But then something recently happened that caused a lot of people to be significantly more outraged over it. In Mesa Millennia, a set that is coming out very, very soon, there's a card called Bonfire, which has an ultra rare print in the set. And Bonfire is a card that basically every single one of these fire decks is going to need once Maze releases. All it does is it adds a level 4 or lower Pyro monster from your deck to your hand, adding a significant amount of consistency to these fire decks. And the reason why this card is very much causing an uproar is because of the pre-sale prices. Over on Gamer's Choice, the typical website that a lot of people use to determine the pre-sale prices of cards, Bonfire started off at $80 in pre-sale. Now, we're talking US dollars, so if you're Canadian like me, you have a 20% premium on all this shit. It started off at $80 pre-sale on Gamer's Choice and sold out almost instantly. So then they relisted it at $90, and then $100, and then $110. And on TCG Player right now, Bonfire is currently sitting at a whopping $125 per copy for the pre-sale prices of Bonfire. So let's take this all into account. If we're looking at building any fire deck for this coming format, here's the basic premium, the tax, the entry fee that you need to pay in order to play any of these decks. You need 3 copies of Bonfire, which if they settle at around $100, which is where a lot of people are expecting them to, that's $300. You got to buy 3 Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, which is almost $400 for just that playset. Then you have to get 1 or 2 Diabellstar, which are $40 a pop. You're looking at right around $700 to $800 just to get these cards that you need in any fire deck you'll be playing in the upcoming format. Now, add on top of that the price of SP Little Knight, arguably the best extra deck card that pretty much every single deck in the game needs to be playing right now to compete, which is sitting at right around $110, $120. We're literally looking at $800, $900, maybe even $1,000 just to get the essential base cards that you need in order to be playing any of the best decks in the upcoming format. Now, I don't need to tell you why that's a little bit ridiculous. $1,000 for essentially like 9 cards, and that's without considering that you need to get 14 other extra deck cards and that you haven't even selected the archetype you want to play yet. You just know you want to play Fire because Fire is getting a lot of support, so clearly Fire is going to be a really good deck. Except for Infernoid. Sorry, Decatron enjoyers. So let's break this down and talk about why this is a massive problem. This isn't an issue that you see very often happening in the OCG, and a lot of people compare this to other card games like Pokemon. Does Pokemon have issues like this with cards? Not really. Does Magic the Gathering have issues like this with cards? Not really. So why does this happen so often in Yu-Gi-Oh? And the reason why is very simple. Yu-Gi-Oh uses a rarity system that is significantly different than most other card games. Most other card games, including the Yu-Gi-Oh OCG. So in Japan, the way they have card rarity set up is that instead of a card coming in one set rarity in any given set, instead, the card comes in a high rarity and a low rarity or something along those lines. So like in Magic the Gathering, you'll have a card that comes as a common or as a foil, but you can get it in both rarities. It can either be not shiny or be a shiny version if you want to pay a little bit more. In the OCG, they have a similar system where you can get some cards in like, you know, the quarter century rare and all this stuff, but the card also comes rare or the card also comes common. So if you want to play low rarity with the exact same cards, you can, and it costs you significantly less because the cards are a lot easier to pull from the packs. However, in the TCG, we don't have that luxury. It seems as though Konami has determined that here in the TCG, players will, you know, dish out the money that they need in order to get these cards. And in doing so, they realize that they can just make whatever the best cards in the set are high rarity, and then people will buy the set because people need the cards, and then people will dish out the money to get the cards. So this is basically the primary reason why the cards are so expensive. But the question is, what are the solutions? Other than having Konami basically change up their model, which obviously they're probably not going to be doing anytime soon, what can a player do to basically circumvent this? A lot of people have taken to Twitter to basically voice their opinions about this. You have a couple of people that are actually defending the prices of these cards. Some players and some collectors and you know, shops, sellers and stuff like that, vendors, feel as though cards should have a premium price, especially for the best cards in the game. A lot of people feel as though these cards warrant this price. Now, mind you, these cards have pretty much all of them have quarter century rares. Like the Diabell Star entire package can come quarter century rare, and I'm gonna be honest, they're not even like that much more expensive. I mean, I'm here already, I'm already spending my week's worth of groceries. I might as well get the quarter century rare. You know, that's so crazy. It's insane to think about. So yeah, there's a couple of players and vendors that feel as though these cards warrant their premium price because playing the best deck in a format, playing these cards is a luxury. And to that point, I don't fully disagree. It is a luxury. I mean, it's a hobby at the end of the day. Well, for most people, it's not their job. For me, it happens to be, which is great. And if you compare Yu-Gi-Oh to like other hobbies, hobbies are expensive. Typically, hobbies will be expensive for pretty much anyone. But on the other side of the spectrum, there's a lot of people that want these cards to be able to play rogue decks and stuff like that. I mean, I'm gonna say it, dude. Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils and the Diabell Star package, it's really good in Infernoid. It's really good in Laval. If you want to play Evolzar, you need these cards if you want to play them as best you can. So at the end of the day, should pet deckers be punished for wanting to play their, for lack of a better term, their rogue pet deck at the top level that it can play? I don't really think they should. I'm not one of those people that's gonna say, oh, all cards should be cheap as fuck, nothing should cost over $10 or anything like that. I know a lot of people have that opinion. I do not share that opinion. However, I do agree that cards should not cost over $100 for a card that you need to play 3 of in pretty much every single deck moving forward. Like, that's ridiculous. Now, I saw on Twitter a lot of people that had a specific argument that I wanted to bring up and I wanted to kind of debunk because I think it's a little bit fucking silly. Just go to locals, play locals regularly, top tournaments, top locals regularly, win prizes that you can then sell, or win store credit if you play in a store that gives you store credit that you can then use to buy the cards. And a lot of people seem to have this opinion that you can just play more to gain more in order to acquire the cards that you need. The first very big obvious problem with this issue, with this situation, is that not everyone is able to top locals regularly. I mean, not everyone that goes to locals goes undefeated or goes 3-1 every single time they go, and especially the fact that if you don't have these cards, it's very difficult to top in a field where everyone else does. So if everyone else has these expensive cards and you're trying to play to earn these cards, you know, through store credit or through prizing, you're gonna have a very difficult time because you're basically playing 2 steps behind everyone because they all have these very powerful cards that you're trying to get, whereas you have to try to get there without having them. So odds are you're not going to be going undefeated. You might you know, lose a round, maybe even 2, at which point you're probably not getting enough prizing to earn these cards in this, you know, year or a year or 2 or whatever. You're probably not getting that much store credit. The other issue is that I've noticed that a lot of people that bring up this argument actually seem to live in like big cities or near very big and popular local shops, but the reality of it is not everyone has a good local shop to go to. I could go to a different locals every night if I wanted to. There's that many local shops here. A lot of them give store credit when you win or when you top or something like that. A lot of them do box tournaments and stuff, but not everyone has access to that. Actually, the majority of players that I've asked actually live somewhere where the closest locals, there's one a night, and the locals is 45 minutes to an hour drive away. And oftentimes these are small shops that might give out like 2 or 3 OTS packs if you win or something like that. There's like 10 people that show up. The store can't be giving you crazy store credit. And then if they do an OTS tournament where you win like a mat or something like that, good luck having anyone at your locals buy it off you. I mean, those mats, I don't see how you can turn that playmat that you win at an OTS championship, which don't happen very often, into, you know, money to then pour back into the game to get these cards. So that's just simply not a solution. And the biggest argument that I'm seeing people bring up is, oh, but Teledad was more expensive. This isn't that bad. Teledad was crazy. But that argument's ridiculous. I think to say this one deck was so expensive that this deck being about here on the expensive level isn't that bad is kind of silly. Because at the end of the day, $1,000 entry price to then add onto it however many hundreds of dollars worth of cards, like we're going to be looking at decks that cost base price close to $1,200, $1,300 just to like build the base, like lowest rarity version of this deck. So I wanted to close this off with my opinion, because I know a lot of people are going to be wondering, Coder, if you don't want cards to be $5 like a lot of people, and if you don't want cards to be $1,000 like some people, my opinion is very simple. I think that in Yu-Gi-Oh, it makes sense that staple cards will be more expensive. For example, I know a lot of people were very upset with Ash Blossom when it got a common printing, and the common printing was still $20, $25. If it comes to a card like Ash Blossom, I genuinely feel as though Ash is one of those cards that has been good since the day it released in 2016 or 2017 or whatever, and it's never not been good realistically. And that card at a $30 price point, I feel like is warranted and has been warranted since the very beginning. Like a $30, $40 price point for cards that are staples such as Ash Blossom or something like that, or Imperms and whatnot. I feel like those are price points that make sense for staples. Archetype cards, like cards that are in your engine, probably shouldn't be that much money. The way that I view it is I feel as though staples having a price point that is higher up, those are cards that warrant it because they're cards that you buy once and then you can use on and off for the next 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, look at Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom's on like 8-year like streak of being playable or something along those lines. I do think there is a pretty big issue with Konami initially printing these cards at a crazy high value, and then every time they reprinted, I mean, Droplet's the biggest offender of this, right? They printed Droplet as a secret rare and then reprinted it again as a secret rare in Brothers of Legend. That's a little bit silly to me. So I think it makes sense for Konami to reprint these cards at a lower rarity when they do, like they did with Thrust, which frankly is an appreciated move. But the way I look at it is I feel as though Konami shouldn't be printing cards in a predatory way, which they've been doing significantly. They're constantly printing cards, making them high rarity after high rarity after high rarity, knowing that the player base is just going to shell out the money for them and rip the packs open like crazy to try to pull these cards, because that's what the player base has been doing here in the TCG. I mean, another predatory thing that they do very regularly is if you look at like the ban list, they don't use the ban list to balance the game. They use the ban list to sell cards and to sell sets. If you look at Rescue Ace, they banned Airlifter. Well, they limited Airlifter, I should say. And realistically, they didn't limit Airlifter because they wanted to nerf Rescue Ace. They limited Airlifter to force you to play the wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils engine, because otherwise your Rescue Ace deck is inconsistent as hell. So realistically, the only reason why Airlifter went to 1 wasn't because they gave a fuck to hit the deck, is because they were like, we want you to play the expensive engine in your deck. Here, you must now play this or your deck is borderline unplayable. You know what I mean? It's crazy. What was I fucking talking about? I was saying something. I lost my train of thought. One sec. The way that I look at it, if Konami starts to, like, you know, they can print cards at a high rarity at the start and then reprint them, like, lower if they choose not to do the multiple rarity system, which I honestly still think is the best way to go about it, but, like, Konami obviously isn't going to do that. But I think it's also, like, on a player-based level, right? Because I feel like a lot of people are scalping these cards and scalping the prices. A lot of people are buying into these crazy, insanely high prices, where, realistically, if the player base as a whole together agreed to stop paying crazy absurd prices for cards, then we wouldn't be seeing crazy absurd prices for cards, because it really is a supply and demand thing, you know, like any other commodity. But obviously that's probably not going to be happening either. I just really think that if the price point were at a level where staples cost anywhere between $30 and $40 and buying deck cores was cheaper, because if deck cores are cheap and staples are expensive, that's where, like, the game is at a, like, its best balance, because you end up buying the staples, which you will have for years to come, and then every time you want to buy a new deck, all you got to do is buy a new engine, slap your same staples up in there, and you're chilling. But at the end of the day, even the staples being super expensive like they are today is a problem. Like, obviously, sets like the Rarity Collection circumvented that and was a fantastic play, but Konami have only done that once, and I'm genuinely not convinced they're going to do it again. So here's hoping that they do it again. At the end of the day, I just don't want to see people have to shell out 4 digits to buy a deck. $1,000 deck is absolutely ridiculous. I think a top-tier meta deck being in full, costing anywhere between $300 and $500 is probably a more reasonable price point. I understand that this is a luxury, and with, you know, hobbies and stuff like that, if you want to take your hobby all the way to the next level, it's going to cost you some amount of money. And I think anywhere between $300 and $500 to full build a top tier meta deck from absolute scratch is probably where the numbers should be at and what makes the most sense. But at the end of the day, with things being the way that they are, I don't think this is sustainable, and I don't think that this is something that the player base is going to be okay with moving forward. Like, we're already seeing a lot of people quitting the game, a lot of people that are, you know, constantly complaining about this, and I think their complaints are valid and should be heard by Konami. Let me know in the comment section below, do you guys think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is too expensive right now? Do you guys think there's a solution that we can use as the players in order to let Konami know that we want this to be addressed? Because this is something that I feel like a lot of people have been talking about, but no one's really figured out what the next step is. What do we do as a fan base, as a player base, to let our overlords at Konami know that we would like this to change? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!